Good evening from Philadelphia. This is Monday, October 27th, 8 days until the 2008 presidential election. The Democrat in the race for president facing only one challenger still tonight. The Republican, it would seem, taking on three at a time. Our fifth story on the countdown, one final week remaining of McCain versus Obama, McCain versus Palin, McCain versus Bush. Good luck with that one, sir. No wonder the Arizona senator appears to be waging an uphill fight. We begin tonight with Obama and McCain, the Illinois Democrat giving a rousing speech that his advisors called his closing argument, making an emotional case for electing himself over Senator McCain and returning to a campaign theme that has seemed absent during the economic downturn: hope. 5 different polls released in the last 48 hours, giving Senator Obama the lead in Virginia. Obama by 11 in polling by the Virginia Commonwealth University. Public policy polling, a 9-point lead. Survey USA, also 9 points. The Washington Post, 8. Even Zogby at 7. With that as the backdrop, Senator McCain still trying to gain some traction on the economy, beginning with a meeting with some economic advisors and an attempt to portray his opponent, actually the Democratic leadership as a whole, as dangerous on taxes.
Now, this election comes down to how you want your hard-earned money spent. Do you want to keep it and invest it in your future, or have it taken by the most liberal person to ever run for the presidency, and the Democratic leaders the most liberal who have been running Congress for the past 2 years, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid? You know, my friends, this is a dangerous threesome.
Democrats dangerous, check. Distance self from unpopular president, check, check.
This is the fundamental difference between Senator Obama and me. The fundamental difference. We both disagree with President Bush on economic policy. The difference is that he thinks taxes have been too low, and I think that spending has been too high.
A claim that might have more credibility, one, were it not for Senator McCain's voting record, and two, had Senator McCain not said on Meet the Press just yesterday of himself and Mr. Bush, quote, "Do we share a common philosophy of the Republican Party? Of course." At that closing argument speech, Senator Obama arguing that it might really help if Senator McCain could define what he's actually for.
After 21 months and 3 debates, Senator McCain still has not been able to tell the American people a single major thing he'd do differently from George Bush when it comes to the economy. Not one thing. Senator McCain says we can't spend the next 4 years waiting for our luck to change. But you understand that the biggest gamble we can take is to embrace the same old Bush-McCain policies that have failed us for the last 8 years. We can't afford to take that risk.
And about those supposedly dangerous tax cuts.
No matter what John McCain may claim, here are the facts. If you make under $250,000 a year, you will not see your taxes increase by a single dime. Not your income taxes, not your payroll taxes, not your capital gains taxes, no taxes. Because the last thing we should do in this economy is raise taxes on the middle class. And we have been saying that throughout this campaign.
As for the hope part of the Obama campaign's final stretch, turns out this election might not hang on the question of whether you are better off than you were 4 years ago, after all.
The question in this election is not, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? We all know the answer to that. The real question is, will this country be better off 4 years from now?
Time now to call in our own Richard Wolffe, also, of course, senior White House correspondent for Newsweek magazine, who's traveling with the Obama campaign and is at the other end of this state, joining us tonight from Pittsburgh. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
During the primary, Senator Obama accused of not being able to close the deal. Is this approach to and phrasing of it as the closing argument speech, is that part of a strategy to address this previous idea that he couldn't close the deal?
Well, up to a point. I think there are two different sort of phases for the primaries as we think back to that period. This is the Obama of the Iowa period. And he had a closing speech, by the way, before the caucuses there. Candidates fired up, the crowds are enthusiastic, and he's summarizing some of the big themes, which turn out, as it happens, to be very similar about McCain as they were for Hillary Clinton, this argument about changing and fixing the broken politics. But the campaign points out that in the later phase, when we think about the arguments that he couldn't close the deal, we're talking about Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Texas, states where the demographics were against him, where he didn't have much time to get himself known, and he was running on an economic message against Hillary Clinton, who had a very good lockhold on that economic message. With McCain, it's a very different situation. So it's not really, the campaign points out about Obama, it's just a very different situation. And the close here feels very different right now in Pennsylvania and Ohio earlier this morning than it did in the primary phase.
Now, why Ohio for the rollout for that speech? Was it because that he'd struggled with working-class voters in that state in particular during the primaries? Is it because no Democrats won the White House since Kennedy without Ohio in 1960? Or is it just some symbolism relating to how Kerry lost in 2004 basically in Ohio?
I don't think anything is symbolic at this stage. This is very focused and targeted. Ohio is an offensive state in the sense that this was a Bush state, of course. It's still very close. Most people in the state think it could still go either way. And then coming to Pennsylvania at the end of the day, giving the same kind of speech, obviously the single defensive move that he has in the sense that this is the state McCain, for some reason, in spite of the public polling, still thinks he has a shot in. But really most of this period, this last 8 days, is going to be on Bush territory. And that's, I think, the relevance of Ohio.
And turning to Virginia, those 5 polls out of that state, all giving Senator Obama substantial leads of some measure. Do we, at some point, get over the fact that we're actually talking here about the state of Virginia going for a Democrat in a presidential election?
Well, you're right to point out this is an astonishing set of events. When the Obama campaign started this general election and said, listen, we're going to be focused on Virginia here, there was a lot of people in the press and in the political class that said this is really kind of wishful thinking. And at this stage, to have that kind of lead, it is a clear sign that they're looking at multiple paths to getting enough votes in the Electoral College. Really, inside campaign headquarters in Chicago, the Obama folks think that Virginia is the one to watch on election night. If they're really winning it by these kinds of margins, then there are going to be lots of Bush states that will fall for Obama. But, again, cautiousness. Is that lead really going to hold? They think there's going to be a lot of tightening.
The candidate and television is a final topic, Richard. Do we know anything yet about that half-hour Wednesday where he's buying every channel but Sci-Fi? I mean, he's going to be on half an hour on basically all the broadcast networks and possibly many of the cable networks as well. Is this a documentary more than a speech? Is it more like Michelle Obama's performance tonight on The Tonight Show, or what are we expecting out of this?
Well, they're keeping it under very tight wraps here, but this is going to be a professional production. They're working very intensively on it. They've got a number of teams working on it in terms of their advertising guys, and the people who are working on it are known for being meticulous about the execution. So I think they're trying to make it good TV, but the content, we're still going to have to wait and see.
Richard Wolffe of Newsweek and MSNBC in Pittsburgh for us tonight. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Keith.